Democracy in practice. Democracy in practice.
Democracy in Practice. It is a pleasure to be with you on this auspicious Armed Forces Remembrance Day, one of the most important events in our national calendar. Let's get on with it. Fiscal leakages that allow financial infractions and massive fraud is perhaps the single biggest drawback in Nigeria, with even far greater consequence for governance and development. The recent events in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation were still being investigated allegations of funds diversion into private pockets has further deepened public concern. As a fallout of the scathing exposures, the President suspended two of his top-level appointees, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Betta Edu, and the National Coordinator and Chief Executive of the National Social Investment Program Agency, Halima Shehu. Not only that, the President wielded the big stick, suspending all actions relating to the Social Investment Program, and then also ordered a thorough and comprehensive investigation, which is now ongoing. There are talks of possible cabinet reshuffle, perhaps as a consequence. Question is, in all that have happened in the past weeks, what really can be done to at least reduce, if not eliminate, leakages and infractions that have become a recurring decimal and a nightmare in the nation's governance system? Quite often, monies have been tampered with. And these monies being tampered with are those set aside most of the time to cater for the poor, the weak and the vulnerable, as in the case of the current circle of scandal that has engulfed or enveloped the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. Then there's the theft of pension fund by the jailed infamous Abdulrashid Maina. It is still a textbook reference point. Why is it that public treasury is so porous and it has become a low-hanging fruit for everyone and anyone to just pinch and plug money off? Sadly, even as the nation observes one of the key events in its national calendar, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, a key issue is the infractions on the monies available to cater for the families of fallen heroes and retirees, who we are constantly reminded of their sorry state of want, deprivation and frustration after selfless service and standing up in defense of the motherland, its unity, progress and development. Our conversation on democracy in practice will be around these issues, and I'm joined in the studio by Ambassador Chibuzo Okereke, who is a legislative and public policy analyst. Also doubles as the executive director of Erudite Growth and Advancement Advancement Foundation Africa. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening.
We're expecting others to join us on the platform. Barrister Gerald, if you'll be joining us hopefully in the course of the conversation, and Dr. Hussaini Tanko, who was at some point the national chairman of the National Consciousness Party, and now, in the last election, stood in as the chief spokesman of the Labour Party presidential candidate. Mr. Okereke, you had the background to this conversation.
Sure.
When this whole issue about infractions, especially in the humanitarian affairs, came to the open, what was your immediate reaction to it?
Well, first of all, let me offer my prayers of solidarity to the Nigerian Armed Forces. Today is very special, and to thank them on behalf of Nigerians for the good work they are doing. And I pray that nobody will pilfer on the funds that are meant for their welfare, so that we can tackle insecurity squarely. On the issue of the alleged infractions in the humanitarian ministry, first of all, what came to the public glare was that we're looking for, is it 44 billion or 37 billion, something like that?
37, there was 44,
okay.
Then there was 30, then 3, all kinds of money were thrown in the public space.
A number of figures. So I thought this is a ministry that is very special. This is a ministry that is responsible for handling social succor and sort of providing intervention to the poorest of the poor. And I recall that in 2016 the former president created this particular ministry, and the ministry at the time it was created was a policy of government. There was no legal framework on how it will function, and because of how our politics work, I don't also think that the office of the secretary to the government was given enough latitude to design the bureaucratic template for it to operate. So I think that it was largely a kind of policy discretion for those that were responsible for managing that. I give you an example. The immediate past Speaker of the House of Representatives, who is now the Chief of Staff, actually sponsored the bill for the establishment of the National Social Investment Program Agency. And it became very important because from the previous administration of President Jonathan, we had the SHOPI working without also a legal framework. We moved into the Buhari administration. He even created a special ministry, yet we didn't have specific legal. And people have asked, is this about legal framework? Yes, sir. It is about legal framework because it provides the flags. It gives us the template, the operational know-how on how this should be worked.
At the beginning, in the absence of such legal framework, that is making room for this kind of...
No, I'm laying a background, and the background is this. The former president refused to sign that law. They continue to work in that manner, having National Cash Transfer Office, having the JIP program, having the Empower program. It was as if without the minister or the coordinator of the program at that time, nothing can happen. There is no law that is holding anybody responsible for performing certain responsibility. And I've always argued that responsibility accounting is as much as important as financial accounting. It's key because it's through responsibility that finances are expended. Now, 6 days to the end of the previous administration, the former president signed that law. Now, when the current president, entered into office,
6 days actually.
6 days. I think 23rd of May. That was when he signed it. So they worked with that. He had the bill with him in line with Section 58 of the Constitution. He was supposed to enter a reservation or return it to the National Assembly. He didn't do that. Then he signs it 6 days to the end of the administration. Now, when President Tinubu came into power, he now appointed somebody for the first time to head the agency. And where am I going? At the time, these people were working without any legal framework for the agency. Everything was under the ministry. So the minister was in charge of everything, right? Because these agencies, were not there because there is no law. It was just a program and project of government. Now, the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry is unique and different in that what you may call capital projects in other ministries are now these interventions they do. And some of these interventions, particularly the one that has to do with cash disbursement to unbanked Nigerians who are classified as vulnerable group. And you recall that the social register was a problem at the beginning. And there was this argument about we need to audit the National Social Register. We don't know how those people got there. Oh, what bank partnered to them? So it is unfortunate if there are allegations of fraud around monies that are meant to tackle the issues of the poor. But I have argued that in this particular scenario, particularly the one involving the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, we have not seen the allegation of financial malfeasance from her. We have only seen that a memo was written for money to be credited to a certain account that is tagged private account. And upon close examination of that, we discovered that this person in question is the project manager. And I have said that people keep putting financial regulation number 713 that says no individual should pay money into government account and no government money should be paid into individual's account. That will amount to intention to commit fraud. And this was at the time where ministries and agencies of government could 15 bank accounts in the commercial bank. Since the introduction of the TSA, that could no longer happen. What you have now under the TSA regime is that sub-accounting unit take responsibility for that, and that agencies of government actually under financial regulation number 1402 sub-III under advances for special projects, disbursement of funds for special programs and projects, that the project manager and accountant are the accounting officers, and their job is to disburse that money and make retirement with such document as an evidence that they have disbursed the money.
Does that capture putting such money for disbursement for a given and specified official function under the responsibilities of the agency? Yeah. Does that excuse putting the money in private account?
That is the problem. What is the definition of private? An officer cannot be a private person.
That money is deposited in my own name, not in the name of the organization I run. It becomes private.
No, there is a problem. That's why I'm telling you this is very different, and I'm sure it's happening in every MDA in Nigeria. And that is the argument should be: can we review this framework because it exists? That if you're a project manager or project accountant under the provision for advances, section 1402 sub-III, sub-3, that a program manager is the accounting officer. Now, if you're a program manager for a project, and the money for that project is paid to you, it is not paid to you in the capacity of a private person. It is paid to you in your capacity as project manager. The next level of interrogation would now be: are you actually the project manager? Was the purpose designated for that money, you know, the actual purpose, and have you disbursed it?
An account in the name of the project.
It is not possible.
Why is it
under the TSA? We will run it. That is what I'm telling you. The TSA is a digital platform.
We'll be joined here.
Maybe, yeah.
And be joined by a lawyer who is also going to give us some bit of interpretation to this, the controversies around what is a private account, what is not a private account, why should the money have been in the name of the individual, even if he's in the office and is running the program. We'll return to continue this conversation shortly.
Democracy in practice. Democracy in practice. Democracy in practice.
In the delivery of governance in this country. Through ages, we've complained, laws have been made, the issue the damage to the process of development has kind of continued. Now we're having a fresh circle of scandal enveloping the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. And it's quite sad to the extent that this is a ministry with a special role to play in alleviating the situation of those that are shortchanged practically by the system. They're poor, they're weak, they're vulnerable. Now, it has come to a point where we ask, is it a humanitarian affairs ministry without humanitarian feelings? We're dealing with that question based on the infractions that have been alleged and that has enveloped that ministry. I'm now joined also in the studio by Barrister Gerald Ekunife. He's an Abuja-based legal practitioner. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I've been in the studio with Ambassador Okereke. He's a legislative and public policy analyst. Again, the issue of infraction. It's also coming at a point on a day that is very special to a lot of Nigerians, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day. Now we've had a litany of complaints and issues around even taking care of the welfare of these soldiers while serving and in retirement, and even in death. Their families have had to go through the agony of not being able to access interventions made available and provided for in the public treasury. We've had serious issues of pension fund, military pension fund, not being delivered to those who are supposed to get it. So the issue around the humanitarian ministry is quite broader and bigger and deeper, with more serious consequences than we're talking about now. Why have we got, have we been unable to rise above this kind of infractions, especially when it comes to funds made available or set aside for the vulnerable in our society? Barrister.
Thank you once again for having me, and my apologies for running behind
It's all right.
time.
You're welcome.
I think, the why, to my mind, will have to, I don't think it's a question of law. I've always believed that in every facet of our national life, we don't have sufficient, laws, but we have just about enough to get us going. I think it's about, number one, enforcement of the laws we have that guard every area of our lives. And number two, most importantly, political will by respective governments, not just this one, because we know that the issue of corruption, it's an age-old thing in our country. I remember still in my secondary school days, my uncle was, a politician, and he kind of, more like piqued my interest in politics. And then I would sit under his feet, and then I listened to the so-called corruption in those days, or for which the military intervened in government in the first place. So corruption is actually an age-old thing in Nigeria. So respective government, the lack of political will to deal with it, namely, precisely to enforce the laws that we have, to checkmate them. Now, yes, make no mistake about it, we have gaps, loopholes in our laws. But then the law we have, if we do enforce it with requisite political will, we wouldn't be where we are at today. Now, that's one.
Okay. Now, the issue is really about these leakages and how it's been abused. Is stage of more or less. You mentioned the arrangement prior to the signing of the National Social Investment Agency law, which was kept at bay for quite a while, until 6 days to the expiration of the previous administration, and then it was signed into law. There are, in terms of institutional framework to drive it, it's not there. This also suggests leakage. Now the question is, Are we doing this deliberately to allow these leakages to fester so that these infractions, we make excuses for the infractions?
Well, I don't think, you see, the problem is that I've always argued, can we get to a point where we end politics and start governance?
Good.
It's a big challenge. Nigeria is fully charged politically 365 days in a year till the next election cycle. We never get to governance, and this is the big challenge. The former president doesn't have any reason to keep that law at bay and only signed it. Why did you sign it 6 days to the end? But let's not blame him. This president has acted swiftly, appointed somebody as the chief executive officer in the last 3 months. When this person took over office, in December or so, we started hearing this issue of 44 billion was missing and all that. And I agree with the barrister, absolutely. But who is going to be responsible for enforcement? That is the issue. And that is why I talk about, can we stop at looking at ourselves, how we are going to survive politically, and look at how we can drive governance and development for the country, so that those who are responsible for managing our affairs can be serious and do it. And then responsibility, will have to be delivered for every assignment or every office that you occupy. Now, if you look at institutional framework key, under the TSA, for instance, the ministries and agencies have sub-accounting units. They are self-accounting agencies. In other words, the Accountant General simply authorizes the release of their money into their own sub-accounting unit, and they are responsible for, they're paying maybe contractors or doing this special disbursement.
Ambassador, does this self-accounting equate personalizing the whole?
No, what I mean by self-accounting, yes, it means that they actually have, apart from the Accountant General's office issuing accounting procedure and regulations to them, the internal control system is supposed to be maintained within the ministries under the TSA. So you've got internal audit, a whole department with even a director and all the staff. So you've got internal audit. Now go to every ministry today and ask internal audit staff member, how are you? They will tell you, please, I'm looking for where to go, because simply they have been looked down upon everywhere in the country and all that. So if you don't allow the internal control systems to work, it becomes a problem. And if you politicize every issue, it becomes a challenge. For instance, are you aware that under the public service rules, you cannot steal government internal memos and post online? If you love Nigeria so much and you are working somewhere and you saw something that is not right, when you take it, you send it to the appropriate authorities. If you think they will not do what they're supposed to do, take it to appropriate media houses who are registered. Then the media house knows the safeguarding. You embarrass the country because you want to drive traffic to your online platform and people will pay you money. Then you are waiting for another story to break so that you jump on that one. Countries are not run that way. We have to respect our rules and follow our rules. This is very important.
What you want to intervene here?
I just wanted, I don't know if I should say differ a little with the
Go ahead, please.
I don't know if it's different, but two things. He asked the question, very important question, who should enforce? One of the things he said. And that's $1 million question, okay, because it's what we've been battling for decades right now. Number one, I have to say it unequivocally that the person to enforce or persons to enforce are not, at large. They are not at large. We know them. One, the government of the day, the person that has the mandate of the Nigerian people should enforce the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
They've sought to do that,
including that of the bureaucracy.
That's it.
And there are systems to ensure that. For instance, internally, he's talked about the internal audit. Nigerians as a whole should ensure enforcement, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe, I don't know if it's to differ that I will call it. Nigerians should ensure enforcement of their laws.
You're talking about citizens' action now.
The outcry of Nigerians was part of what led to sustaining the pressure on this revelation, and then the president hearing the people that gave him the mandate to be there acted. Okay, but the challenge I'm having is, one, it is a sectorial, a citizen-wide engagement. For instance, what he said, if internal audit, if you know what that entails, the legal implication of having an internal audit and what they are supposed to be doing, you will not take them lightly. But if they are being taken lightly, in other words, they are being ignored, they are being relegated, they are not doing their work. For instance, I am aware that there was a clear breach of procedure, okay, in this issue. Now, the investigation will reveal that.
So still the investigation
is a program manager.
Yes.
A program manager. I think a certain, Olonite, forgotten the first name. I think the request is the word emanated from his office. Okay, he asks the minister, to make preparations, for disbursements of this fund to Kogi. It came from him. Now that request shouldn't go straight from him to the minister ordinarily. He should go, I think, to the permanent secretary by procedure. The permanent secretary was supposed, to forward that to, I think that's audit. The internal audit will now do their job, because if they had done their job, rumor, I don't know how true, of flight tickets to Kogi and other places where there is aeroplane, it is the job of the internal audit to unearth that, disapprove that, raise flag, refer it to the minister, take care of this cannot fly. After the internal audit, I think the next stop will be budget. Budget will check whether the fund is available, and then when it is, then the permanent minister has done his job and forwards it to the minister for approval, for payment. But where the internal audit is not allowed to do his job, the question is part of enforcement, and that's why I say it's a citizen-wide approach. They ought to rise up, raise their voices, but what often happens? They get victimized. Okay, so what next? So here's the point I'm wondering whether I should disagree or not. I do not think that if a blogger, because often a staff, a disgruntled staff, whether acting patriotically or out of pain,
or out of malice,
think that something is going wrong, he forwards the material to who? A blogger or someone, and then it flies. The question is, somehow, if the internal processes are violated, somehow the truth has to be
please, I want to comment.
Earlier you talked about when we started with the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, and funds will be also raised to help the fallen and the serving heroes of the motherland. But you said something that is very instructive, and it ties to what he is saying now. It raises a question of the trust deficit that we have in the system. What you said is that hope the fund will also go to the people meant. You said that.
Yeah.
And that is the general template in terms of the thought of Nigerians. When it comes to money and usage of such money and the way government officials, the state itself, handles appropriation and disbursement of publicly generated money meant for public good, we have issues with it. We always raise doubts. Therefore, when you have an internally disgruntled person, it's because he doesn't trust the system will adequately respond to whatever level of grudge he probably will have with the system. So he leaks it. And not that it is ethical, but the trust deficit we have in this country makes room for such that.
Beyond ethics, it's even criminal. And when I talked about who will enforce it, I'm not talking about that we don't know the people. I'm talking about the general character of political leadership and the perception of the people that political leaders have failed us over the years, including political institutions. It's not as if we don't know that people have taken oath of office.
The failure is beyond perception.
Yeah,
it is real.
It's real. So it's real, and it's also, and so that is what I meant. So because I needed to clarify that we are not looking for people to enforce, but the issue is that the reality is that the governance failure have made it, become $1 million question. Who will rise to the occasion and show character, in leadership? Now, in terms of please, and I'm happy that my brother here is a lawyer. You cannot say because there are many, being disgruntled has many elements attached to it. It could just be out of your own envy, right? Or malice. So you cannot, go against the law of the land in the name of being disgruntled. Because if you say you don't trust the EFCC, you don't trust the ICPC, you don't trust the police, you don't even trust well-established media houses, except when you leak documents to where to create traffic and money to people. No, it's not correct. This is what our law says. This, if you are in service, and think about it, and why I'm concerned is that if this is not politically, orchestrated or motivated, how come we don't have memos from the same office of 44 billion? So are you saying that people that are not happy that there is alleged, misappropriation of 44 billion, they are only unhappy with 585 million? So something is wrong. If we want to, so something is wrong somewhere, and that's what I'm talking about. Let us stop politics and face governance. Stop being, I was on air. I think I came here or some other station, and when we were setting an agenda for these ministers, we said, if in 2 months to 3, these ministers don't bring out roadmap that align with the renewed hope agenda of the president in the 8-point policy action plan, then that minister should find his or her way out of office. This particular minister and a few others were among those that were able to put out their policy roadmap. One, that they agree with Nigerians that this national social register will be audited and corrected. And now that we have the NCPA law, we can now work because it's a national program. It's not federal government. So under that law, you have federal level, you have state parties and local government actors. All of them are supposed to work together to deliver to us a proper social, national social register that the people that truly deserve to be there are the ones in that register, and that audit process started. She also talked about going to the grassroots to meet with the people that are vulnerable or who are displaced, to provide shelter and provide other things, and she stated it, and she was out there doing it. From the records we have, she has already done more than 15 states in the north and about 3 states in the south in these 5 months. Now she talked about paying the money they are owing Empower people. They have been protesting for more than how many years? About 400-something million or so. And talked about also doing this transfer to poor people, about reaching 72 million people by the end of 2024. You could see somebody you will hold to account, and that is, she's young, she's got the energy, she's got the productive, resourcefulness.
What is the missing link in all of this?
I'm not saying, all this thing I'm telling you is what we have identified. It does not matter that you are so excellent as a minister. If you commit fraud, the law will take its course. So what we're saying is that do not jump the gun, jump the law, and it brings political sentiment and slaughter over the person even before the person is found guilty.
Okay, Barrister, let me ask
this. It is wrong to do so.
And let's tie his intervention now to what the presidency has said with respect to this this whole issue. That it has already initiated the process of what it called a thorough and comprehensive investigation, and that at the end of the day, justice will be served. Are you confident?
Very confident.
Are you confident that we will get thorough, we will get very comprehensive, but most importantly, justice will be served?
You're putting me in a very difficult position. I say that because, in fairness to the current administration and the president, okay, if I were to go back to our experiences in the past, I would say I'm not confident. However, considering that there is a new kid on the block, and this is a man that won, as far as I'm concerned, this is, controversial, but as far as I'm concerned, a clear mandate. But there was a whole lot of hue and cry in the media, so much pressure. If you ask me, okay, partly undue, partly justified pressure. Undue because those who say he didn't win or he didn't win, right? Yes. Who think that they won, I don't know how they won, are putting such an amount of pressure I've never seen on him. But then a justified pressure because Nigerians have not had it so rough for a long time.
Are still going through rough times.
Still going through rough times.
Yes.
So these are the two situations he's facing. So based on that, I know that he understands the pulse of the citizens of this country. That they are not willing, to suffer any form of, financial, infractions against the backdrop of what they are facing currently. So he can feel the pulse of the nation, and he knows that Nigerians have all eyes on him to see the outcome of this particular investigation. So I have confidence in him that a thorough job will be done. Let me quickly say something to what he said. Just for the record, Dr. Betta Edu, as far as I'm concerned, was one of the hopes I had in this administration. She's one of the shining lights of this administration. I've never known her. I've heard a little about her when she was at the state level, Cross River State. But when, they joined the APC and were thrown up, she was thrown up at the national level. Right from her days as APC woman leader, this woman has got capacity, given her age and all. At a very personal level, I am pained. I feel for her. A part of me, heavily sentimentally,
shouldn't you be feeling more for the man on the street who is poor,
I feel for myself. I am on the street. I'm on the street. I feel for myself. I feel for Nigerians on the street. But I feel for her. I am not feeling for her because, in quote, she committed an offense. She hasn't committed an offense. It's not proven. It's an allegation. So I feel for her. A part of me is praying for her that when objective, unfettered, transparent investigation is carried out, I'm praying that it will be found that honestly she did not transgress.
Okay. Because the
way she's going, I believe in her capacity. However, having said that, this is mere allegation. If investigation is concluded and she is found to have fallen afoul of the law should
take its course. Okay, confidence or no confidence? Do you think, under the circumstance and given the antecedents of this kind of situations, that because we've had several of this kind of situations in the past, should we moderate our expectations in terms of the outcome of this investigation, or should we just like he's praying, others have expressed optimism, but some are also skeptical? Is it about skepticism about the entire process, or just moderating expectations?
No, I think that Nigerians should expect the best out of this. You know why? This is the first time, in fact, this particular issue, maybe God allowed it to happen for a reason. We've been operating a system that is obsolete in many ways.
Loose and obsolete, and it's not helping anyone.
If you have the committee go back and look at how special programs are to be disbursed, because a lot of Nigerians do not even know that under the provision of advances, special disbursement for projects, that this is possible. And we saw the former vice president in the market distributing market money to people, and some people were taking the names of those people and they will come back, the project managers and accountants will come back and retire it. You understand?
Yes, it has happened.
It has happened.
Antecedent,
and
yes.
not just in humanitarian affairs, every other ministry that is doing this type of social intervention program to the unbanked, the people that have bank account, you can collect their account numbers and credit them. But if you're going to the unbanked people in the rural communities, somebody has to be the accounting officer who will receive this money and distribute. We should focus more on whether the person who received this money has distributed it to the right people, and what are the source documents to prove that, and can we confirm? Two is that this committee will be able to help us rework and re-engineer the financial accounting system, especially where it's obsolete, so that people will not
go. The key issue here is about those leakages that is enabling people to commit infractions.
So, for instance, do you want the federal government to award contract for disbursement of money? No, because that's why you have to know. Humanitarian Affairs Ministry is uniquely different. If they award contract for disbursement of money, what will be the terms of reference? You can award contract for financial consultancy services to set the framework for your financial system, not for somebody to go and help you and distribute money when we have officers in that place that could do it. So people have to understand this and move the interrogation from the point of, oh, money went to private. I said, if that person is a project manager, project accountant, it cannot be called private in this circumstance to receive the money in official capacity. What the next interrogation now is, those monies, has it been distributed to the people? If you distributed it or disbursed it, who are those people and where is the concrete evidence that you did? Right? So this is important. So I expect this committee to, because this program, I have said, Humanitarian Affairs is the ministry that will define this renewed hope. I have argued that renewed hope is not for the rich and powerful. They know where to buy their hope from. The renewed hope is for the poor and vulnerable people. So the ministry that is in charge of making sure ordinary people receive support and intervention from government, we should make sure that everything there is working properly. So the only thing I saw as maybe kind of intimidation, because I will rise for youth and women any day until you are proven to have, dipped your hand into, the pot you are not supposed to put your hand into. Then we can say, oh no, this is not the type of youth that we want. But this particular youth who has shown courage, capacity, competence, who has been out there as the poster lady of this administration, we should give the benefit of doubt until investigation proves otherwise. Then we can come and say, no, you didn't do it right, let the law take its course. But I think the president recognizes the importance of this ministry, and the audit process that is going on now will enable us to say, okay, for conditional cash transfer, this is how it should be done. For empowerment of entrepreneurs, this is how it should be done. For empower people, this is how it should be done. For instance, have you bothered to audit the people that are on the Empower register, whether they actually recruited and teaching somewhere, but they receive money? These are the that is why I'm talking about this audit. And when I talk about internal audit department, it's not just for this. Even the Auditor General of the Federation Office is also weak. And the person has also said same. So it's not new. So we have to recognize the place of audit. In fact, it is now that the National Assembly is sponsoring federal audit bill, so that we can have an audit system for everything. Audit is not just finance. Audit is process. When the internal control process works effectively, then the outcome will be, okay. So I believe that this particular
in all of this, Barrister, I think one of the key things we can take out of the current situation is is Nigeria ready to have a designed standard template, not only to block leakages, but to ensure that financial infractions are curbed, or if not, totally eliminated, but to have a sustainable process that will ensure public funds are used for public good? Are we ready for it? Given the politics is talked about, given the institutional weakness that that has sustained the drift in the country for so long, and so people are actually benefiting from it. Are we ready for it? Are we ready to take responsibility?
The question answers itself. Again, I refer you, to the public, uproar that trailed this. Clearly, we are ready. Although, your desire is one thing, okay? The clear path to achieving your desire is another. Your question actually takes me back to way back in the university, a very serious debate that was had about public policy, where the maxim came up that public policy is amorphous, that it's an unruly horse, so that you can ride it anywhere. But it was Lord Denning that came out at one point and ended the debate. He said that it may be an unruly horse indeed, however, with the right man in the saddle,
on the saddle,
that's it. He can ride that supposed unruly horse to a safe destination. The truth, doctor, is that we are more than ready, and it's not like we are going to have a snap of the finger one day, and then you have this entire gamut of law and processes that will help you checkmate everything and have a perfect system. Because, as you know, that there's no perfect system anywhere. Okay, and it leads me back again to what I talked about, the laws. He cited, and the ambassador is making a sound case already.
Actually, very
people have gone to town.
Yes,
they've gone to town and they have tried, convicted the humanitarian affairs minister already.
So much media trial, and then you have 7 and your interest groups are falling over one another.
Doc, can I bet you, the truth of the matter is that majority of the people on the street, they've concluded, if as unbiased, as unfettered as it is an investigation is carried out, it happens that Minister Betta Edu returns with a clean bill of health, people will cry blue money. That's the honest truth. And that's the unfortunate aspect of the kind of democracy we are practicing today and the kind of citizen participation in democracy.
The leadership foisted this trust deficit on all of us. Because for all through the years, they've done things, said things that they've not lived up to the bill.
Agree.
They say one thing and do another thing. So people just do not trust.
Agreed, but I do not know whether, I don't know where to place the responsibility right now of making amends. The leadership bears the body of trying. However, at least if you see that the same government that appointed, the minister in question in the eye of the storm has taken action, a prompt action, no matter how infinitesimal it is, for a start, that should elicit some form of confidence in you. Now, if this person takes this action, let me invest some measure of trust in him. So, no matter what we have faced in the past, we should not be shaped and formed permanently in that mold of, distrust. Because that way, we will never move forward. If I don't invest, no matter how small, a modicum of trust in you, I cannot relate with you. And whether you like it or not, the citizens and the government have a relationship that we must find a way to move forward.
Ambassador, moving forward and tying it not just, we have a whole spread of humanitarian issues in this country. Poverty is growing. As at last year, we're told it was 4 million people, 133.4 million, 3%. Now it's gone even worse. It's about 148 million people, moving from 138.4 to 148. It's all over the place. Squalor, misery, frustration. Crime is rising. But we also have resources from the public tills being not just an allegation. We've seen in clear cases monies practically stolen It's not about just...
Or swallowed by snakes.
Or swallowed by snakes. Now, moving forward, I'm tying this whole gamut of humanitarian affairs in this country, and also singling out those that today is meant for, the armed forces, those that have served, those that have paid the supreme price, and those who have left families behind. How can we ensure that the larger spread of Nigerian citizens are captured by a sufficiently trustworthy social safety net, that they feel safe in their country to continue to drive? Have you imagined that these days nobody talks about patriotism anymore?
Well, I think that first of all, you cannot give what you don't have. We have to go back to the basics. This is a democracy. Look at the percentage of turnout in our elections. Look at the kind of political parties that we have and their internal democracy mechanisms. Look at how people win party tickets. Look at how our elections are conducted. You are trying to recruit people. You donate your resources, Commonwealth, you donate even your thinking, because they're not going to think for you. You're only going to challenge the thinking when you're surrendering yourself. In the theory of state formation, you would know that you have surrendered, right, to these people, and yet we don't care how to get the process right. No matter how competent a leader is, no matter the capacity a leader has, a leader must be compassionate to be able to design social safety net programs that reaches the people. And I tell you this, Nigeria is such a huge country, right, with large population, and we operate in a federal system that is only federal on paper. It cannot work. You cannot from Abuja, Federal Capital Territory, operate a program or intervention from here to communities and villages. It can never work effectively, whether it's in humanitarian affairs, whether it's in SDGs, anywhere. I have argued that we need to bring everybody on board. We have to agree as a country, what type of federal system do we want? Do we want a 2-tier level? Do we want a 3-tier level? The Constitution created local government in Section 7, and almost in B part of it abandons the local government to the states to create law for the administration of the local government. Today, more than 80% of the local government do not have democratically elected leaders. Governors just appoint these people to work. It cannot work that way. So if we want 2-tier system, fine. Every state go and create as many local government as you want. We will recognize only federal and the state, and then you can use your resources. Then we change the revenue sharing formula and what have you. So we need to get the federal system working and working properly. Nobody should think power is transient. We have seen how many presidents from 1999 till now. Some of them are alive, some have passed. Those who are alive are answering former presidents. They don't have a car, they are not living in villa. So if you're a president today, the best you can do for the country is to rise to the occasion and not to be a protectionist, trying to amass power, protect yourself, somebody telling you, oh, if you do devolution of power, somehow you are not going to be important again, you will know. So I call it Big Daddy presidency. We should end it. We should end it. Where you are Big Daddy and every other person is a child crying for you for some milk. It's not going to work. We can't develop that way. For instance, this time around, almost all the states did their budget and signed it, even before the national budget was passed. So you ask yourself, normally they will draw inspiration from the macroeconomic indices from the national budget, knowing very well the mainstay of their resource come from federal allocation. So they went on to do their budget. So the disconnect, the gulf, between the state and the federal government is widening by the day. It's not supposed to be so. That will not help us. So The political leaders must have a national consensus that this country needs to be developed. Nobody should query, nobody should answer Yoruba president, Igbo president, Hausa president. That's what you see in Nigeria. After appointing ministers, they will say, oh, what did the North get? What did the East get? What kind of this? What kind of thing is that? If a president from, like President Tinubu is from the Southwest, if you decide to pump money into North to do agriculture, knowing that we have, lands there that can give us good yield and food security. Some people will say, are you mad? They just finished 8 years. Why are you taking money to go and put there? If you come to the East and say, let's transform, let's do industrialization, let's invest in this, are you crazy? Are you not aware they are agitating for Biafra? You go to South, so national, and you have to know, leaders emerge every day. So we don't have a group of people called national leaders in Nigeria. Because another election, in this 10th assembly, we have turned over almost 80%. All the other people gone. So the chance you have, use it to unite the country, work for the country. If we need devolution in the area we need it, let us do it and move our country forward.
Yeah. What's your passing shot here?
Well, I guess your ambassador has said it all, but making a case for a holistic, developmental, agenda for the country. All I will say, in addition to just what he has said, is simply, what he has said is desirable. Okay, but that request for that national consensus among the political or leadership class has always been elusive. Okay, so it boils down to the individual Nigerian. It's always easy and it's okay to place all blame on the person that is in Aso Rock. Okay, but just like what he has said, every one of us knows that the quest for an expedited, even development of Nigeria that will touch the ordinary man is going to be a holistic one. Every state, every local government will have to pull together. And for this to happen, how is it going to happen? His fantastic advocacy. As fantastic as it is, actualizing it is a challenge. Okay, so we encourage here, we call on our people, but in actual terms, we've been doing this for decades. Calling for the right things to be done, the elite consensus, how do we bring it about? Individual Nigeria. So I bring it to under a democratic setting, National Assembly. If you are going to, it will start with devolution of power. Reduce, because what makes the president big daddy, democracy, I'm forgetting the word you use it right now, is because of the enormous powers that the Constitution vests in him.
That's it.
So if we're going to take practical steps, I'll be asking question. Who is that Nigerian patriotic enough, who is not lacking this information that he has adumbrated, who is elected on the altar, on the platform of the APC at the National Assembly, elected on the platform of the Labour Party, National Assembly, elected on the platform of the PDP and other parties, who come from different parts of this country, who is not aware of the need for instance, given the insecurity challenge we face, for the local government to become active. That's it. You've talked about states. In a true federalism, in quotes, true in quote, because there is federalism or there is none, but we have invented the adjective true to qualify, what we mean. So, the presidency and the states. How about the states as they are presently constituted? With the meager resources they have, how about their relationship with the local government? It's critical. So the individual Nigerian, including those who are receiving the short end of the stick today, should begin to play by rule. Are you aware, sir, that if anything must go wrong, assuming without conceding, I haven't conceded that something has gone wrong in the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry, ordinary person, like I tell some of my friends when we get into interaction on the states of the nation, I tell them, the ordinary person that lives on your streets, who works as the secretary to the director of procurement, who works in one small office or the other, they have to be willing to bend the rules to cooperate with the almighty minister before anything can go wrong. So at the end of the day, to move forward, individual, I'm sounding like I'm preaching right now, but the individual Nigerian, it is what it is. The individual Nigerian will start doing right. Last time, the hue and cry was about the 160 million.
That's it.
People consider it outrageous. I don't know, because I've heard some lawmakers, they are done. They say, hey, the present situation is that things are rough. The road is rough. It is dangerous. We need this high sophisticated to ply the terrain. You can make whatever you want of that, but the truth of the matter is that the outcry was there. How many lawmakers, including with the high turnover we had, newcomers who were crying yesterday, who promised heaven and earth? The question is, how many of them were willing to say, I want to stand aside and be counted? I feel we should go this way, giving the state of the economy very few.
The problem is, if you reject your car, where will you go to play? During the COVID, the House of Rep member donated their salary, I think, about 6 months.
Yes. Commendable.
Till today, even the condemn.
We are not sure whether the thing trickle down.
Thank you. So that is why the system redesign is key, so that if people sacrifice, for instance, Otedele just donated 1 billion to Lagos Security Trust Fund, and you know this is for security. So when we make sacrifice, we should say this is where it's going to go and intervene, and that will help for us to make progress.
In all of this, the critical thing to take out of this is that we need systems redesign in order to limit infractions in the government financial system or mechanism, because of the huge damage it's doing not only to our national psyche, but it's holding down the development process in the country. We have been talking about why leakages have persisted within the Nigerian financial system, government financial system, and the extent to which it is not doing any good to our development process. And I've had in the studio with me two gentlemen who have been quite insightful in terms of their intervention. Ambassador Okereke here, he's a legislative and public policy analyst. Thank you very much for
Thank you for having me.
I've also had in the studio Barrister Gerald Ekunife. He's an Abuja-based lawyer, and I think he's so passionate about good governance, pushing the responsibility to attain that to the citizens and taking individual action for the collective good. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. And that's it on Democracy in Practice. We'll be coming back with other issues, engaging issues as they emerge within the Nigerian democratic space, with the sole purpose of deepening democracy in Nigeria. Thanks for being with us.
Democracy in Practice.